Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is September 20th and this is my weekly shop update. So pretty much the entire past week, I was off at Woodworking in America. I brought my wife and my son with me to that. And this year I was a speaker. I gave 3 different presentations, and I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who came to any of my sessions. I really appreciate it. It made it so much easier to have people in the audience that were excited and they were smiling and they had good questions. It made it a lot easier for me because, as I mentioned in the past, I am like deathly afraid of public speaking, but I think this went fairly well. And from last week, I know a lot of people mentioned that I should repeat the questions so that the recording could capture the question that was being asked. That's really hard to do in the moment, by the way. So I did record all 3 sessions, and I do have to do a little bit of editing to those. One problem I did run into is my camera battery died an hour and 40 minutes into my building your own lumber session. That was the point where I realized that I was actually running out of time, which I was really surprised about. So I kind of started rushing at that point. But I got all the way up through chainsaw milling on video. So I'll be editing those a little bit and releasing those in the next few weeks. So for all of those who couldn't make it in person, you'll be able to at least watch the presentations. I do have a few clips of the presentations so you can kind of get an idea of the theme, I guess, of each of the 3 different talks. So most of us, if we're just doing like woodworking, we're kind of down here. We're kind of making furniture. If you're like buying your lumber surface already from wherever that does like S4S, you're here. But if you're buying rough lumber, you're up here already. So most of us were kind of in this 3-section area here. And what we want to do is extend our reach higher and higher all the way back through the materials, all the way to the source, which is the tree. This is my favorite one, paying attention to what matters. So here you can really this is like the fudge your way to perfection is a good way to put it. So pay attention to where perfection counts and ignore what doesn't. So learn to identify the part of the operation that necessitates perfection. So in the examples we're going to look at today, and probably the best example is the Morrison tenon. On the Morrison tenon joint, the only thing that demands perfection is that shoulder, because that's what you're going to see when the joint comes together. What's going on the inside doesn't really matter visually at all. The only thing that matters really structurally is the fit of the tenon and the mortise. And then one last detail I want to mention here is grain flow. So on the bottom rail here, you can see the grain actually perfectly follows this curve all the way across. And I tell you what, before I had this aha moment, I could find some grain that curves to match my curves, and I made a curved piece with some straight grain, and it has that exit point where the grain just comes straight across and it truncates because you cut into it. It doesn't look anywhere near as good. I look at that stuff I did like that, I'm like, what was I thinking? This does not look good at all. So in the past years that I've gone to Woodworking in America, I've had a lot of time to go to the other sessions and spend a lot of time in the marketplace. And this year, though, I was so busy getting ready for my sessions, and then the time I spent in the marketplace, I ended up just talking to people the whole time. So I think I only made it around the marketplace like a full circle one time, which is fine. I did purchase a Vesper Try Square. I've been really wanting one of these for a long time. And Chris had this version here. This is a really old one. This is one of his first production runs of his Try Square. So I saw he had this 4-inch Try Square available, and it's one of his really old ones. This is actually from 2009 he made this. He doesn't make this style anymore, but my bevel gauge that I have is a similar style. So I figured this is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to purchase the square that I've been wanting for so long, and I finally got one that actually matches. The thing that I absolutely love about this, and since I saw these in person for the first time, this is the one thing that's really made me want this thing so much, and it's this little tab right here. This is the coolest thing ever, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin your life here because ignorance is a bliss. When you have a typical square like this and you want to have it on the edge of a workpiece, let's say you're trying to square up something like you're trying to strike a line square on a workpiece, you have it on there and you got to kind of have to hold it because it's going to flop off. Well, this little tab, it flips out and now this whole square will just sit on whatever you're working on, so you don't have to worry about holding it so it falls off. That's a killer feature, and since I saw that in person at I think Woodworking America last year is when I really saw it. I've just been thinking about it for so long. So as I said, I was so busy talking to people that I actually didn't really have any time to film anything while I was there either, besides my sessions, which is fine. It's the same pretty much every year, but the experience of being there is where it's really at. So again, thank you to everyone who just stopped me to talk and chat. It was a lot of fun meeting everybody and seeing everybody that I've met in the past. So let's take a look at some viewer projects. First up this week is this gorgeous dining table by Kyle. The whole table is made from walnut and the perimeter inlay is made from maple. The legs are inserted inside a 1/2-inch angled mortise into the bottom of the tabletop. Kyle also has a video on his YouTube channel that you can check out if you want to see how he made this whole table. Next up is the shield by Julian. He made the whole thing from stuff he had laying around the house, and the main board is made from an old joist from his house. He did all the detail work with a Dremel and some sandpaper, and the handles were made from an old belt and a steel tube that was handled and bent into shape. This was his first major build and was a gift for his teacher. Next up is this beautiful sideboard by Arvid. It's made using both hand tools and power tools, and the sliding door is 3 layers laminated and shaped on the table saw. The doors are joined with loose splines so that they are removable. The whole thing is made out of American elm except for the handles on the drawers, which are made from walnut. Next is this kitchen island countertop by Adam. This was a commission piece, and the wood for this project was supplied by the customer. They supplied him with 7 yellow birch slabs that had originally been intended for sleigh runners. The inlaid bow ties are ash, and he tinted the epoxy with charcoal dust, and is sanded 600 grit and finished with the commercial tung oil finish. Lastly this week is this bench by Matt. He built this piece for his son's room from thick pieces of pine that were pulled from a barn that was falling down. The bench has a really nice contrast between the plain wood and the original wood with the saw marks in it. Matt also has a video on his YouTube channel where he went through the entire process of building this bench. This week, I'll have a small woodworking project video. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this, but it'll be a small woodworking project as opposed to a steel project for once. And then, of course, the mill. I'll be working on that a little bit towards the end of the week and then getting back into it for real next week, especially with this giant motor sitting here. So I think that's about all I have for this week. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.